and Rafi Farber is another brilliant guy who does a masterful job on showing us what's coming in and out of COMEX. What he's been talking about lately is equally as fascinating. He's been talking about the massive drawdown of metal, which is something I've been talking about for a few years, the deliveries that have happened in silver.
Well, it's interesting because this theme that you're poking at here about the reality of the nature of real money is so important, and it came out later this week. We're going to have Alistair McLeod's interview coming out. He's going to talk about that. Rafi Farber, who we had on for the first time, is going to be coming out and talking about that. And the idea is that people think of wrongly when they think of acquiring something and then dumping it, basically flipping it to make a profit in dollars or something, rather than. And I even had a client ask me who was purchasing small amounts and getting started, saying, yeah, but how do you get rid of it when the time comes? How do you get rid of it? And you can't just take it to the store and buy something like you can now with dollars or whatever. This idea of not yet waking up to the fact that precious metals are money, gold and silver are money. So most people don't wake up in the morning asking themselves, how do I get rid of money? How do I get rid of it? I got to get rid of it. If it's real money, you don't want to get rid of it. As times get tough or whatever happens, you hold on to real things. So it's going to be an interesting time going forward for all of us. And you and I have both been trying very hard here to reach as many people as we possibly can to get that word out, to probably wake up the sleepwalking people who are subject to harm from a system that is going to fail. And when it does, they'll be much better off if they have something that's real. So Alistair talks about that, and it echoes what you're saying about the very wealthy. And so for the last several decades, we have basically the whole Western world has been creating, not only just the stock market and the bond market, and then the derivatives and the derivatives above those. And this whole complex, he says, is going to come tumbling down, and all of that is going to be very sharply focused on what's real, and that's commodities and sound money. And whereas you have some of the Asian countries, this came out from your talk from the Rural Symposium, Russia and China, notably some of the most powerful there, who are taking a very different approach and making sure that they are well stocked with gold, for one, and real things that people need, like oil, gas, fertilizer, rare earth metals, all kinds of things like that. So strategic commodities.
Yeah, and that's what Zoltan Pozsar said, the repo market expert, that we've now entered Bretton Woods 3, a system that will be based upon commodities rather than debt instruments. And I completely and totally agree. And I hope if Alistair is watching, or you'll tell him, he's one of my top 2 or 3 favorites out there. I don't miss anything that he says. So I'll be looking forward to seeing that premiere. And Rafi Farber is another brilliant guy who does a masterful job on showing us what's coming in and out of COMEX. What he's been talking about lately is equally as fascinating. He's been talking about the massive drawdown of metal, which is something I've been talking about for a few years. The deliveries that have happened in silver, I think over 250 million ounces were delivered in silver just the other day off the London Metals Exchange. That an extraordinary amount of gold is coming off the COMEX. In fact, I think what Rafi said was that in one of the interviews I just caught of his, that the July drawdowns in COMEX gold are at the fastest pace in the history of the COMEX. We talked about SLV, and 100 million ounces have been taken out of it in a very short period of time by the commercial banks. So once again, you're seeing, and you can merge that with record insider selling of stocks, where the insiders are selling on any sign of strength. So you put it together, you have insiders leaving the stock market on signs of strength, and you have massive drawdowns in inventory on not only the LME, but also the COMEX, and at the same time backdooring out of SLV and GLD, which are the commercial banks. They're the ones doing that. So sophisticated money, big money, which is kind of the theme here. And I've been saying forever, they use the price as a tool of misdirection, and they are exiting out of these centers of inventory and removing counterparty risk. And you don't have to be a genius to take a step back and say, why the hell would they do that? Why? What's the reason? Well, obviously, they feel that counterparty risk is a problem. Obviously, they feel leaving it on the exchanges is a problem. Why did the central banks all repatriate their gold before it was reclassified Tier 1? This common thread that keeps on growing, it's very illuminating. And it all comes back to the fact that, well, why don't people get it? Well, people don't get it because the price has not taken off. Well, why hasn't the price taken off? Because the price is set on the COMEX, and it's fraudulently set. And the prices has nothing to do with physical demand. And that's the part that is really hard for people to wrap their heads around. Most people say, I don't care what you say, Andy, the price hasn't done anything. Yeah, you're right, it hasn't. And the markets are manipulated until they're not. But if it were just manipulated, that's one thing. It's hard to say, well, when does the manipulation end? Okay. Why is why are the markets being drained of their physical metal by the most sophisticated, well-funded, well-informed traders on the planet? You look at what the others have been doing, taking massive amounts of gold off of COMEX. We've talked about this group, the others, huge amounts off of COMEX. So you got the sovereign wealth funds and the family offices draining COMEX. You got the commercial banks draining SLV, GLD, the London Metals Exchange, and COMEX. I mean, it's happening right in front of you. And this is why people don't get it, because they're not paying attention. How would they? Why would they? You got to watch a guy like Rafi, or you have to read the Commitment of Traders report, which is mind blurring. And then at the same time, you look at what's going on with the U.S. Mint, limiting the ability for the average Joe and Jane to do the exact same thing. There's something bigger at play here, Dunnigan, and that's just the bottom line. And that, I think about this every Sunday night when I have to start preparing for what I'm going to talk to you and others about all week. And it's hard to keep going down this same road, this same narrative. And I do take comfort in the fact that a lot of the things that I've been talking about seem to keep evolving, allowing me to continue this thread, this narrative. And I want everyone to know that I hope I'm wrong. I mean, if I'm wrong, I apologize. If people trusted me to prepare for what I see coming, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. And I guess we'll have to see what you said to me offline here, that Alistair was talking a lot about the things that I've been talking about. Certainly makes me feel a little bit more confident in that he's as bright of a mind as there is in this industry. But I don't think you have to be a world-class economist like he is in order to see this. If you take a step back and are honest with yourself and look at the chain of events that keeps happening under one umbrella called de-dollarization. And if you look closely enough, go back and listen to the years worth of interviews you and I have done. And every single time I say the same thing about de-dollarization, about misdirection, about metal being drained off the exchanges, about metal or agreements being struck, usurping the dollar. It's all happening, and it's accelerating in pace. And then you throw into the mix 40-year high inflation, a war, a rating of a former president, when Lord knows there are many other houses that should have been raided long before his, and on and on and on, things that just make you shake your head. I don't know. It's just something's going on. Something is at foot. And I think now more than ever, maybe even people get it. They're starting to get it when they feel that their government is turning against them, hiring 85,000 new IRS officials. At the same time, a former president's home is raided. I mean, the whole thing just is starting to become disconcerting. And even if you can't articulate what it is that's bothering you, I think people feel that something isn't right. Now, maybe not the way that we do or your listeners do, because we've been preaching this stuff for a long time. But, when this awakening happens and whatever the fuse is that lights it, I think that we're running out of time because, like we talked about offline this weekend, one very large order will blow up my inventory. There's 5 or 6 companies like me in the country. So 5, 10 wealthy people. What happens to everything in this country? Gone. Bye-bye. And then what? Then you're into 2023 before you get product? That's true. That's real. And you've been a representative of my company long enough to know I'm being sincere. And because you see all the inventory, we have a lot, but it doesn't, it keeps disappearing. We keep trying to refill it. Anyways, again, down the rabbit hole, but I just want you to know that I think things are starting to accelerate. And I think that it's going to become clearer to more and more people as time rolls on, because there is an appearance of acceleration of a lot of these events globally and here domestically.